My name is Jake, 35M, and my wife, Emily, 33F, has just destroyed everything I thought we had. We've been together for 10 years, married for 6. Our relationship wasn't perfect, no one's is, but I thought we were solid. I worked my ass off to give her a good life. We have a beautiful house. No kids yet. Something she kept pushing off, saying she wasn't ready. And what I believed was mutual love and respect. Lately, though, something felt off. Emily had always been a little high maintenance, but in the past few months, she became downright unbearable. Constant complaints, picking fights over nothing. Suddenly, the way I chewed my food was annoying, and she'd roll her eyes whenever I tried to talk about my day. Her phone was always glued to her hand, but the second I walked into a room, she'd tilt the screen away. I should have trusted my gut right then. I remember one particular night when we were having dinner, and she got a text that made her smirk. Not just any smirk, the kind she used to give me when we were first dating. My stomach twisted, but when I asked, she sighed dramatically and said, "Jesus, Jake, can I have some privacy? Not everything is about you." That was another thing. She'd started making me feel crazy, like I was paranoid. But I wasn't. I just didn't have proof. Not yet. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Emily had never been great at hiding her emotions, and lately, her coldness toward me had been almost unbearable. Every little thing I did irritated her. The way I laughed, the way I folded laundry, even the way I breathed sometimes. But the second her phone buzzed, she lit up like a damn Christmas tree. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought a small hidden camera and set it up in the kitchen. Before anyone jumps on me, no, I'm not a controlling freak. I wasn't trying to spy on my wife for fun. I just needed to know. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I placed it near the coffee maker, where it had a perfect view of the kitchen and the back door. And I waited. The first 2 nights, nothing happened. Just normal, boring footage of Emily making her late-night tea or standing at the counter scrolling on her phone. I almost convinced myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe she was just going through something. Maybe I was being paranoid. Then, on the 3rd night, I saw it. I was at work when the notification popped up on my phone. Motion detected in the kitchen. My heart pounded as I clicked on the live feed. And there she was. Emily. Not alone. A man, tall, dark hair. Someone I immediately recognized. Her coworker, Brandon, 32M. He had her pressed up against the counter, his hands on her waist, his lips on her neck. She wasn't pulling away. She wasn't resisting. She was leaning into him, laughing, whispering something in his ear before kissing him full on the mouth. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My wife. The woman I loved. The woman I gave everything to. In our home. In the kitchen where I made her breakfast every Sunday morning. The place where we danced like idiots while making dinner. The place where she once told me she couldn't imagine life without me. And now, she was in there with him, kissing him like I never existed. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles went white. The world around me blurred. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was shattering. And at that moment I knew, this wasn't going to end well. I sat in my car outside our house for a full hour, staring at the front door, replaying that footage over and over in my head. Every second, every movement, every goddamn laugh she gave him. It burned into my brain like a brand. I wanted to storm in there and rip the whole house apart. I wanted to drag Brandon out by his collar and beat the life out of him. But more than anything, I wanted to know. I wanted to hear her lie to my face. So I walked in like nothing was wrong. Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone, acting like she hadn't just been tangled up with another man an hour ago. She looked up, gave me a lazy smile and said, "Hey babe, how was work?" I almost laughed. The audacity. The fucking audacity. I kept my voice steady. "Fine. What about you?" She stretched, let out a fake little sigh. Ugh. Exhausting. Work was a nightmare. Stayed late trying to fix some reports with Brandon. He's so useless sometimes. Oh, I bet he is. I leaned against the counter, right where she had been with him earlier. My skin crawled. I wanted to burn the whole damn thing down. Late? Huh? You just got home. I asked. She nodded, not even blinking. Yeah, like 20 minutes ago. Why? And that was it. The moment I knew for sure that she wasn't just a cheater. She was a liar. She didn't just make a mistake. She didn't slip up. She wasn't caught in something she regretted. She was calculated. Cold. And she had no fucking clue that I already knew the truth. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. But I smiled. Forced myself to play along. No reason, I said. Just missed you, that's all. She grinned and got up to kiss me. I let her. And I nearly gagged. I knew, at that moment, I couldn't just confront her. If she could lie this easily to my face, she'd have an excuse for everything. She'd gaslight me, make me feel like I was crazy. I needed to plan my next move carefully. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night I barely slept. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing. She slept so peacefully. Like she wasn't betraying me. Like she wasn't sneaking another man into our home when I wasn't around. I wanted to shake her awake, shove my phone in her face, and watch the panic set in. But I didn't. I waited. The next morning I acted normal. Kissed her goodbye before work. Told her I loved her. She smiled and said it back without hesitation. Without even a flicker of guilt in her eyes. Unbelievable. I took the day off work and spent the morning digging. If she was willing to lie that easily, I needed proof. Proof she couldn't weasel her way out of. And holy shit, did I find it. Her texts were deleted, but she wasn't as careful with her emails. I cracked into her laptop. The password was our anniversary date. Ironic, isn't it? And there it was. Emails to Brandon. Hotel bookings. Fucking love notes. I stared at the screen, feeling physically sick. I can't stop thinking about last night. I love the way you touch me. Jake could never make me feel like this. You have no idea how hard it is pretending with him. I can't wait until we don't have to sneak around anymore. God, I wish I was waking up next to you instead. Every word chipped away at me until there was nothing left but pure, boiling rage. She had zero remorse. And the worst part? She was planning to leave me for him. She was just biding her time. Letting me play the role of the clueless husband while she snuck around behind my back. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. My whole body shook. I wasn't just some idiot she could toy with. If she wanted to burn everything down, then I was going to light the match. I spent the next few hours in a daze, running on nothing but rage and adrenaline. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't think straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that kitchen with him. Heard the words she wrote. Jake could never make me feel like this. I wanted her to hurt, but I wasn't gonna lash out like some desperate, heartbroken fool. No, she thought she was smart. Thought she had everything under control. That's where she fucked up. I went home early, pretending like everything was fine. Kissed her when she walked in the door. Asked about her day. And then, I told her I was going on a business trip. Just for the weekend, I said. Company's sending me out to some conference. She didn't even hesitate. Didn't ask for details. Just smiled and said, "Oh, that's great. Babe, you work so hard. You deserve a break." A break. I almost laughed in her face. She was thrilled. I saw it in her eyes. The excitement, the anticipation. She thought she had the perfect opportunity to bring Brandon over, to spend the whole weekend fucking him in my house, my bed. I could barely hold in my disgust. But I played my role. I packed a small bag, kissed her goodbye, and walked out the door like the perfect, unsuspecting husband. Only I didn't go to any conference. I parked a few blocks away and waited. And sure enough, within an hour, he was there. Brandon. Waltzing into my house like he fucking owned the place. I watched from my phone, the hidden camera giving me a crystal clear view of the two of them. She jumped into his arms the second he walked in, wrapping her legs around his waist like a goddamn teenager. That was all I needed. I turned off my phone, drove to a hardware store, and bought everything I needed to erase that house from existence. If she wanted a new life with Brandon, she was gonna get it. Just not in my home. I felt eerily calm as I drove back.
No hesitación.
No second guessing. Just a steady, burning focus. I parked 2 blocks away, walked the rest of the way, and slipped through the back gate. The house was dark except for the glow from the kitchen window. I could hear them laughing. My stomach twisted, but I ignored it. I had work to do. I pulled out the gasoline I'd bought earlier, poured it along the side of the house, soaking the walls, the patio furniture, the wooden deck. Every step felt surreal, like I was watching myself from the outside. This wasn't my home anymore. It was theirs. And if they wanted it, they could have it. I made my way to the garage, where I knew Emily kept some old rags. Soaked them in gasoline, twisted them together into a long, makeshift fuse. Then, I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. The home I built, the life I thought I had. All of it was a lie. I struck the match. And I didn't hesitate. I dropped it. The flames caught instantly, licking up the gasoline trail, spreading faster than I expected. Within seconds, the side of the house was ablaze. Heat rushed over me, but I didn't move. I just stood there, watching, listening to the fire crackle, feeling nothing but satisfaction. And then, through the window, I saw movement. Emily. She was in the kitchen, still tangled up with Brandon, oblivious to what was happening outside. Then she must have smelled the smoke, because her head snapped up. I saw her brow furrow. Then she ran to the window, her face bathed in orange light, eyes widening in horror. She screamed something I couldn't hear. Brandon ran up behind her, and that's when I walked out of the shadows and into view. I wanted her to see me, to know who did this. Her mouth dropped open. For a second, she just stood there, frozen. Then she banged on the window, screaming, her voice muffled by the glass. "Jake! What the fuck?" I just smiled. And then I walked away. I didn't run. I didn't panic. I just walked. Slow. Steady. The fire crackled behind me, growing louder, hungrier, feeding on everything I had once built. Emily was still screaming. I could hear it, faintly, over the roar of the flames. "Jake! Jake! Help!" I didn't look back. By the time I reached my car, parked a few blocks away, the fire had spread across the entire back of the house. I could see the glow in my rearview mirror as I started the engine. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, breathing deep. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from something else. Relief. It was done. I had taken back control. But just as I was about to drive off, my phone buzzed. A call. From Emily. I let it ring. Then a text came through. "Emily. What the fuck did you do? Call me now." Then another. "Emily, help US. The fire is spreading fast." Then a third. "Emily? Jake, please." I stared at the messages, feeling nothing. She was begging, pleading, just like I had begged in my own way, asking for her love, for her honesty, for respect. And she had spat on it. Now, she was the one desperate, and I didn't give a fuck. But then another text, and this one made my stomach drop.
"Emily, I'm pregnant."
I froze. My hands started shaking. No way. This was just another lie. A last-ditch effort to manipulate me. Wasn't it? But before I could think, before I could decide what to do, sirens. Bright red and blue lights flooded my rearview mirror. The cops. The fire trucks. Shit. I had stayed too long. Time to go. I threw my car into drive and sped off into the night, leaving behind the burning wreckage of my old life. But the question burned in my mind, hotter than the flames I had started. Was she telling the truth? And if she was, had I just killed my own child? My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel, my foot pressing harder on the gas than I should have. The city lights blurred past me, but all I could see was that text.
"Emily, I'm pregnant."
It had to be a lie. It had to be. Emily was a manipulative bitch. She lied like it was second nature. This was just another trick. One last desperate move to make me hesitate. And I almost fell for it. But then a new, darker thought crept in. What if she wasn't lying? What if, in my quest to burn my old life to the ground, I had just killed an innocent child, my child. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded so loud I could barely think. I needed to get my head straight to figure out my next move. But then, red and blue lights flashed in my mirror. Shit, a cop car. I eased off the gas, trying not to look suspicious. But it was too late. The sirens blared. My stomach dropped as the cruiser sped up behind me. I pulled over, my mind racing. Had someone seen me? Did the neighbors report me? Did Emily tell them everything? The officer stepped out, walking toward my window, flashlight in hand. I rolled it down, forcing myself to stay calm. "Evening, officer," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Evening," he replied. He leaned down, scanning my face. "You in a hurry tonight?" "Just a long day. Heading home." He nodded but didn't look convinced. "License and registration." I handed it over, my fingers barely steady. He walked back to his car. I could see him through the mirror, talking into his radio. Taking way too long. And then another set of lights. Another cop car. My stomach twisted. They knew. I was fucked. I reached for the door handle, my mind screaming at me to run. But before I could do anything, the officer was back. This time with his hand on his holster. "Step out of the car." I didn't move. "Now." I swallowed hard. Slowly, I opened the door and raised my hands. "What's this about?" I asked, playing dumb. The officer's expression was blank. "House fire. Just a few blocks from here. We got a witness saying they saw someone leaving the scene in a car just like yours." I forced myself to look confused. "House fire? Jesus. That's awful." He didn't blink. "Yeah, real awful." "Step over to the curb." I had no choice. I did as he said. The second I turned around, I felt cold metal snap around my wrists. "Jake Turner, you're under arrest for arson." The words barely registered. My heart pounded as they shoved me against the hood of my own car, cuffing me tight. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Emily was supposed to suffer. She was supposed to pay. Now, I was the one going down in flames. They shoved me into the back of the squad car, my wrists burning against the cuffs. The radio crackled, voices coming through, but I barely heard them. My head was spinning too fast. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Emily was supposed to be the one in pain, the one watching her life burn to the ground. Instead, she was probably wrapped in a fucking blanket, crying to the paramedics, playing the victim while I was on my way to a jail cell. And worst of all, I still didn't know if she had been telling the truth. The ride to the station was a blur. The questions, the mugshot, the cold metal bench in the holding cell. I barely registered any of it. My mind was stuck on that last text.
"Emily, I'm pregnant."
She could have been lying. That was the logical answer. But if she wasn't, I might have just killed my own kid. The thought made me feel something I hadn't expected: fear, regret. I wasn't the type of man to hurt a child. I just wanted her to pay. I wanted him to pay. Not some innocent baby caught in the crossfire. I was still trying to make sense of it all when the guards came for me. "You got a visitor." A visitor? My stomach twisted. I had no family in town. No close friends who would come running. That left only one person. Emily. Sure enough, when they led me into the small visiting room, there she was. Her hair was a mess. Her face streaked with smoke and tears. But she was alive. No burns, no injuries. She looked at me through the glass, eyes filled with something I couldn't place. Anger? Fear? Triumph? I picked up the phone. "You ruined everything," she whispered, her voice shaking. I almost laughed. "You think I ruined everything? You did that the second you spread your legs for Brandon." She flinched. Good. But then her expression changed. Her lips trembled, and she let out a shaky breath. "Jake." I wasn't lying. My chest tightened. "Bullshit." She shook her head. "I swear to God. I just found out a week ago. I didn't tell you because, well, because of everything. But it's real." I stared at her, looking for any sign of deception, any flicker of a lie. But there was none. For the first time in our entire relationship, I actually believed her. Emily was pregnant. and I had just burned down the only home we had. My vision blurred. My hands went numb. I had lost everything. I sat there, gripping the phone so hard my fingers ached. My mind was screaming at me to call her bluff, to not believe a single word she said. But something in her face, something in her eyes told me she was telling the truth. Emily was pregnant. With my child. Or was it Brandon's? That thought hit me like a gut punch. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as hell. Is it mine? Her lips parted just slightly. A pause. Too long. My stomach dropped. I don't know, she whispered. Rage crawled up my spine. But this time, there was something else mixed in. Something hollow. It didn't matter anymore. I had nothing left. Jake! She started, her voice softer now. You need to tell them it wasn't you. You need to say it was an accident, that you panicked. Maybe we can fix this.
I blinkte her, stunned.
Fix this. I repeated, my voice dangerously low. You want me to fix this? She had the nerve to look hopeful. If you say it wasn't intentional, maybe they'll cut a deal. You could be out in a few years. We could figure things out. I laughed. A deep, bitter laugh. Emily? I said, shaking my head. You don't get it, do you? She frowned. I leaned in closer to the glass, my voice a whisper now. I don't want to fix this. Her eyes widened. I watched you lie to my face, cheat in my own home. I loved you, Emily, and you treated me like I was nothing. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. So no, I continued. I won't say it was an accident. I want them to know I did it. I want you to live with what you did, knowing I burned down everything we built because of you. She gasped, eyes glistening with unshed tears. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I saw it. Fear. Not for me. Not for the house. For herself. She thought she could control everything. That she could cheat, lie, manipulate, and still come out on top. Not this time. The guard tapped on the glass. Time's up. I stood, never taking my eyes off her. Enjoy your new life, Emily. She sat there, frozen, as I turned my back and walked away. As they led me back to my cell, I realized something. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel guilt. For the first time in months, I felt free. And Emily? She was the one left in the ashes. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.